sponsors, the sponsorships, the relationship going on. I'm gonna dive deep into this. To be honest with you, I don't necessarily say I'm the best when it comes to talking about this. If you're looking for a way to get sponsors and a whole bunch of money and do that game, this isn't the video. This is the video that's going to tell you maybe how I built relationships with sponsors, how I got to meet them, how I got to know people, how I made it in the game of fishing, and in my opinion, the real way to get them, the real way to form relationships. And when I say get them, like a lot of people like, how do I get sponsorships? I wouldn't say I'm trying to get sponsorships. I'm trying to build a relationship that's mutual, right? That there's benefits on both sides. You have to understand their point of view and what they're trying to accomplish and what you're trying to accomplish, right? That's what this video is about. I get a lot of questions about sponsors from everyone, mainly the younger generation, right? Like the teenagers and stuff like that. And so I want to give them my perspective on what I think, maybe going about it, right? Or at least, even if I'm wrong about how to go about it, this is how I went about it. Full disclosure though, I gotta be honest with this one, right? I gotta tell you all about what I thought about sponsorships as a young kid. Growing up on Livingston and starting to fish, I started fishing some of these tournaments, right? And they were these bigger tournaments. I mean, back then it was like these Bass and Bucks and English Choice tournaments and stuff like that. And we did pretty good in them. And I would go like weigh in this bag, and it would either be me and my high school buddy or be me and my dad. My dad really didn't fish. So like he's showing up in shorts and a like Dark Horse t-shirt, and I'd be up there in just t-shirt and shorts, right? Like no big deal. And I'd see these guys, and these like they weren't jerseys back then, right? They were the button ups and who knows what they were, but it looked like, man, who are those guys? And we got to remember back then, there wasn't any social media or stuff, right? So there was I didn't really know who any of them were. Or they looked important, but I didn't really know. But they didn't always necessarily weigh in any like big bags of fish. And so we were doing pretty good back then. We were winning a lot, coming in top fives, like a lot of times on Livingston when growing up. And I was like, man, those guys aren't even, cashing checks, but they got all these sponsors, right? And so I remember, like, as a kid, I from right then and there, I looked at it and go, you know what? When I make it, I'm going to make this fishing thing. And when I do, I'm rolling up on these big stages, and I'm going to have a white t-shirt on, and I'm not going to need any of these sponsors. But, and I'm not, I was just a kid. Like, what did I know? There was no, like, playbook on how to do all this, right? It was just, I didn't have anyone to talk to. That was just it's the mentality of a little teenager, right? Going, I'm going to show you guys. I'm just going to outfish everyone and do it just fishing. And that's what I did for years, right? For years, all I did was I said I was just going to fish every week in every tournament. We didn't fish high school tournaments. There was no college tournaments then. It was just fishing. I fished with what I call the big boys, like, right? They were the grown-ups, like guys like me. I fished against like guys like me when I was in high school and college, and that's what I did. And so I just realized that really pretty young that if I wanted to keep fishing, y'all know I didn't have a lot of money. I just was going to have to keep cashing checks, right? To fish the next time, or I wouldn't fish anymore. So that's how I viewed it for a very long time. Okay. And we did good, right? And I was able to stay in the game through just cash and checks. And to be honest with y'all guys, I did that all the way up into my 30s. As I kept doing this, things started to unfold, right? In college, I had a buddy. He was one of my best friends, Patty. He had a buddy of his, a guy named Justin Buchholz. Justin ended up, me and him fished for a little bit. He knew a buddy from down south. He was a saltwater fisherman, guy down there named Billy Howe. I'm just dropping names. Well, me and Billy Howe, he was like, hey man, he's with this company called Strike Pro. You need to get with Billy Howe. I didn't know who Billy Howe was. I called him, and we played phone tag for like months. Finally got a hold of him and stuff. And I kind of got on this thing with Strike Pro. I didn't know much about it, but it ended up being a whatever you want to call it type deal. But it was a learning experience to work with them. So we worked with them and everything like that. And fast forward to this day, I want to put this in there. Like my relationship with Strike Pro, like sometimes these things are weird, right? Like sometimes there's a company over here and then there's an American company. Well, the company over there I deal with now, Strike Pro, man, they're awesome. Like the owners over there and everything, like we have a great relationship now with Strike King. My relationship with Strike King and them, and it's been a pretty cool deal. It's been a pretty cool deal. So we use them and we work with them and stuff like that. So it's pretty funny how something that long ago has done a full circle and we've met back up and are now semi-working again together. So like I said, it's always pretty cool to leave relationships and good and end them well. And that ended well, obviously. So fast forward, I had one where like we were getting baits and I was helping them all sorts of things. I was helping them with all sorts of things about what baits, need to look like, a little bit of design stuff, color stuff. They were working their way into the American scene. Well, fast forward, we kept fishing and fishing and fishing. And like I said, at that point in time, there wasn't really money involved. It was just some bait stuff. And I was just trying to get my foot in the door and I was learning the business of fishing, right? They kind of introduced me to people knew me for rods over here and for this over there. And every once in a while to get like 3 or 4 rods a year or something like that. Something it was all just kind of little bits and pieces. But the first time I realized is I was old. I was 30 years old and we had won a couple boats, but we finally won a boat that was big enough. And when I say big enough, a lot of the boats you win are like 19 footers and things, and you're going to have to still put a bunch of money into them if you wanted to like fish out of them out of tournaments. And I was fishing out of a 10-year-old boat, and I was fishing a lot of team stuff with my fishing partner, Brent. So fast forward, we end up winning this boat. It was a Legend. And I was like, man, this was going to be my first ever brand new boat. So I ended up keeping it. And Randy Qualls was the guy who was the owner of Legend. And so he was kind of rooting for me. Like he had known, because like I said, I'd been fishing and had my name out there for so long through tournaments that I had made enough of a name for myself that he knew who I was and everything. So when I won the boat, I instantly formed a relationship with Randy, like instantly. And so from there, me and Randy started like, working together to a degree. And they had a big bass tournament, the Big Bass Splash on Rayburn. He invited me to come help him work it. So I did. Through that, he introduced me to a guy named Robert Shamlin. Robert Shamlin was the co-owner of PowerPole. Well, he was over there working the PowerPole booth. PowerPole had just come out, like maybe a year or two. So I go over there and I'm helping him and like I'm talking about this and that. And next thing I know, I form a relationship with that guy, right? And now I don't talk to Robert anymore. I talk to my Casey, but I formed a relationship with him throughout the years of going to like some shows, ICAST, things like that. So are y'all catching on, right? Are you catching on how these things go throughout this industry and throughout the deal? I just kept on trying to be relevant. That's my number one thing I tell people. I just tried to stay relevant in the fishing industry. Fishing as many tournaments as I could, trying to get in as big a tournaments as I could, right? And I just when I looked up there, the big tournaments, like the big tournaments, they all end at a certain time, and all of a sudden you hear nothing from fishermen, right? It's just there's nothing because there's nothing going on after a certain time of the year, right? And I was like, not me. I'm just going to keep fishing. So I was fishing 40, 45 tournaments a year, and a second here, a third, a fifth, a first, whatever it was. I was just trying to always like, I know it wasn't a big tournament, but if nothing's going on, a small tournament's a big tournament, right? Because that's the only news of the day. So I just was always just trying to stay in the news, like, right, just stay relevant, like just bombard people, I thought, with my name. And that would at least, if I wasn't fishing the elites or the tour because of the money, I was like, I can at least get a name for myself that maybe people were like, hey man, they'll know me, right? And maybe that'll come across, because if you send out a bunch of resumes to people, and it's like, hey, I've seen that guy's name a bunch, right? Like that was in my head would be a good thing. And over the years, what would happen is from one sponsor or these guys in the fishing industry, so many of those guys fish tournaments. Okay. And so I would meet them here and there. And whether it was Russell Cecil, who is now my fishing partner, who was a sales rep, who knows everyone in the industry because he's a rep, introduced me to certain people, right? And so I didn't know that at the time when I knew Russell. I didn't even know he was a sales rep. I'll be honest with you. And the only reason me and him even got together was because my fishing partner Brent drew him at Choke Canyon, and he was a co-angler, and Russell was asking questions, and we actually lived like 20 minutes apart from each other, but we never even hardly spoke to each other. We didn't really know each other at that time. So, I mean, it was crazy how that works, but, that's what happened. And so I formed relationships with them. And then over here, I met fishing guys over here and met people through there. Even when Legend went to Ranger and Ranger bought them out, Scott Arms was a guy who was doing Ranger service crew stuff way back in the day, and he used to work on my boat because I was in there every single time because my boat broke down every tournament because I had the oldest boat. And I just formed a relationship with a guy that was doing service crew stuff. And I want to bring that up because in this industry, what I have learned and what I tell people is when you're fishing, when you're out there on the water, I'm just telling you right now, you have no idea probably who's out there. So what I mean by that is someone you meet 10 years ago will have maybe an effect on you 10 years later down the road. And I can promise you that. Promise. Because there are people that have moved up throughout the industry that I have met that have become intertwined in sponsorship stuff that, like, since I was cool with them then, when they were just another, I didn't know who they were. They were just another person, does that make sense? I'm keeping it simple. When I say just another person, they were just someone that I happened to meet, like, at the boat ramp or whatever. And all of a sudden they're in this point of their career where they're intertwined within the industry. And a lot of times those people would reach out to me because they kind of had interactions already with me, and it was good interactions. I bring all that up because to me, I don't know if I've ever submitted a resume to someone that I already didn't know. Okay, like a blind resume was what I would say. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but my sponsorships, all of them came from connections within the industry or through me fishing over the years. And so I always just really try to have really good relationships with people, and not on purpose, just because. And then those usually spread out, and not everyone's going to like maybe my personality or things like that, right? Like you can't control that. But what you can do is hopefully be professional, conduct yourself on the water well, do good in fishing, and then offer something. Like you have to offer something. Now the offering something was, I was always real cognizant about that, right? I always tried to figure out what could I give back to those sponsorships that would help. And a lot of times back in the day it was like winning tournaments and then talking about the product and things like that. And throughout all those times, all the sponsorships I've ever had with people, I always tell someone, and I was writing someone today on a comment, and they were asking me, if you had your choice, and this is why I got my head reeling about this subject. If you had your choice, would you be with a big name rod company or a small name rod company? And I was like, and he was like, the small rod company really wants to make a name for themselves and build really good product and all that stuff. And I was like, look, it can go both ways, but I'll say this. If you're just starting out, man, that small rod company is pretty interesting. And I say that, and I don't know what rod company he's talking about, but my point is if A lot of times it's a small company, not a lot of moving parts. If you can get in there, help them, right? Help them either sell rods, help them design rods, explain to them what they might need, anything that you might be able to add value to them, right? And help them along the way if they're wanting that. Then you can have a little design in there. You can figure some things out, and they'll probably be pretty appreciative over that. On the flip side, though, these, I would say I'm with a bigger rod company now, and that's kind of all intertwined with Strike King. But I said, listen, it doesn't really matter what company you're with. A couple things I believe in. One, you better believe in the product you're about to sell. Number one, hands down. Because if I make a video like this or do anything, and I'm talking about a product that I'm just talking about but don't actually believe in, I'll never do that, man, because then it's my name out there. It's not the company's name, it's mine. It's mine. Everyone will sit there and look back at me, and I don't want to tarnish my name. So if I'm telling someone about a product, that's on me, not the product. That will be my name that's endorsing that. And if I lie about it or whatever, man, I just lost all credibility. So I don't ever want to do that. So I was like, hey, make sure you like the product, love it, believe in it. And y'all will see me. I don't talk about every single rod or reel or bait, right, that Strike King, Lew's, or any of my sponsorships have, right? I don't. I talk about stuff that I use and that works, right? Not saying the other stuff doesn't work. I can't throw 67 rods of Lew's. Lew's might have 132 rods. I don't know. I always have liked getting 8 to 10, 15 rods. And then those are the rods I'm going to use. And some of them I'm going to use for multiple things. And when I get a rod that I like, it's like a rod that I like. I will use that rod for multiple things. Okay. And so I will tell you about that rod, and I will force feed you that rod because I'm like, hey, this is a good rod. Same thing with the reel. I don't have everyone Lew's reels, but the ones I went and got the ones that I liked that were preferable for me, and I use them. Same thing with baits. I can't throw everything in Strike King has. I mean, I have thrown everything, but I can't. I can't throw 75 different baits in a tournament. There's things that I like. There's things that complement my fishing style. So lines the same way. Hooks are the same way with owner. Like these things, like I believe in, and I've trusted them. And y'all see me in tournaments when it matters. I'm actually using all the stuff I talk about. That's why I never have a problem doing videos on any of this stuff. Because if y'all want to see, y'all can look right at my videos of actual tournament videos, not me just talking about them, of videos. But here's the other thing. Those companies are only as good as the people running them. And I have seen that. So you got to make sure you really want who's running that company that you gel with and that you believe in, because that goes a long ways. My relationships with every one of my sponsors, they're relationships with the people, right? Not the company, the people that own the company or the people that run the company and the people that work within the company. Like I value that sometimes more than the actual product. It's no doubt I value that more. But that's something I can believe in them. I can trust in them. I can do a lot of things with those people. So when you're trying to get a sponsorship, I would never just go, for me, I would have never just gone, here's a resume and send it out to someone, man. To be honest, I don't know who I'm sending it to. And just because they would have paid me, I don't know if they would have, but say they would have, I don't want to get in with some company that doesn't treat people right, doesn't treat their pros right, or their people that help them out, doesn't treat their customers, makes semi-good products, but hey, you know what? We can sell them. Like, that might be what you're sending a resume to. I don't know. I'm just telling you, I would never have done that. So I wanted to always research the companies, knew who I was about to deal with, and then deal with, and then work with them. And now I'm working with Skeeter Boats, and I'm going to mention her name, Joanne, just the nicest woman ever. How they have brought me into the Skeeter family and treated me, it's been awesome, right? And I can go on about, all these things about Bass Mafia and TH Marine and Costa and Hook, right? I mean, there are all these sponsors that I've had, and I have relationships with those people, and I value those relationships. And I constantly try to figure out ways to help promote them. Even as we speak right now, Randy Despino. If y'all know who Randy Despino is, Randy Despino just finished, I believe, third at the Tiger Warehouse on Rayburn. Randy owns Despino Tire Shops. I'll even throw in a little Despino tire deal right here. I've known the guy for quite a few years, and all of a sudden, I'll be honest, he was one of the few guys that came to me and just helped me out when I was fishing the tour for no reason. He just, out of the goodness of his heart, helped me out. And I value that to this day. I mean, I was hoping he was going to win this thing. I'm glad Michael Neal did too. I'm friends with Michael. But my point is that, like, man, I'll try to help Randy any chance he get, because he tried to help me out for just being Randy, just being a good dude. And so, man, I will promote his store and his business because that guy owns it and runs it. And I believe in that guy. More than this store, I believe in that guy, that he's going to do right by his store. It's easy for me. It's easy for me to help those guys out. And you can see the trust in me, and you can see the faith I have in those people. So I hope this helps, right? I hope this helps in the sense of how I went around doing it. But if you can take some things away, here they are. Just try to stay relevant in the game. You never know who you're going to meet out on the water or within this industry. You never know, right? And you never know that maybe how you treated someone or things like that. Because I'll be honest with you, in this industry, it's very tight knit, right? I've been asked quite a few times about, hey, do you know so-and-so down here at this place? Or, hey, man, do you know this? Like, I get a lot of questions from a lot of different sponsors at times, or from people asking about certain individuals. And so, like I said, you just never really know who's out there. And I remember when we were at the Pickwick Championship, I had a younger guy in the boat with me, and I was kind of explaining all this to him while we were about to go out. And I said, hey, do you see that person right there? And I was kind of yelling at him, like hollering at him, like giving him a hard time. And I was like, hey, that was my old boss. That was my old boss from Costa. And like, hey, do you see that person right there? They're like, yeah. I'm like, that's so-and-so. And I'm like, they're out there, right? And you would never know. They're just out there. They're out there fishing because most of the people in this industry love to fish. And so, but you would never know who they were within the industry. So I was like, hey, just always be mindful of that. Always be mindful that they're out there, and you never really know who you might one day get introduced to, or one day run into at the boat ramp, on the water, wherever it might be. So keep that in mind, man. Might think twice about maybe how you handle yourself on the water. But this is as good of advice as I think I could give. Like I said, are there other ways? Man, I might have just given you the worst advice ever, and like, hey man, just keep sending in resumes and maybe you'll get money thrown your way and product and all this stuff. You could, I guess. I didn't do it that way. I've always wanted to, like I said, I wanted a very mutual relationship between me and my sponsors, to where, if I'm not doing enough for them, then I shouldn't get anything in return. Like they deserve a lot, because they're putting a lot of faith in me. So I hope this helps. It was a little bit longer than I expected, but y'all know me. I sometimes ramble on, but I'm gonna say it again, relevant. If you're finishing 80th place on tour, right, over and over again, is it relevant just because you're on tour? I'm not dogging anything. I'm just saying, is that being relevant? Or are you the local hammer, every Tuesday night coming in with giant bags, winning every other event you put in? The guy doing that, right? He's more apt to sell a couple more rods around that area, or a couple more baits, or a couple more everything, than the guy that's kind of just lost in the middle of the pack, right? And that's a tough thing to say. I get it. So like I said, I just always wanted to be relevant. I always wanted to try to do, stand out amongst wherever group I was with. And, there's value to that, right? there's value to social media. There's value to YouTube and Facebook and Instagram or whatever it might be. I'm sure there's value in TikTok. But what I'm saying is like, you never really know what your value is. You got to figure out how to maybe separate yourself from everyone else around you. And no matter how it might be, try to do that. Whether it's through fishing, social media, just being a go-getter. I mean, I know some young kids that are just go-getters, man. I wish I had some of that when I was their age. So just keep working hard at that, guys. Hopefully you can not get a sponsor. Don't want to get one. Hopefully you can get in a relationship with a sponsor that benefits both of y'all. That's what you should be striving for, guys. Anyways, see y'all. I'm off to do something.